August 3rd, 2019, at approximately 10:39 a.m. A gunman walked into a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, with the intention of killing as many Hispanic Americans as possible, Mexicans specifically. His motivation was outlined in a manifesto that he posted onto 8chan, in which he claimed that the inspiration for the shooting came from the Christchurch shooting, which targeted Muslims and left 51 people dead. His motivation in undertaking the shootings included mentions of cultural and ethnic cleansing, which is a talking point often spouted off by supporters of the so-called Great Replacement conspiracy theory, which tied into what the shooter saw as a Hispanic invasion of the United States. This anti-immigrant rhetoric reflected the rhetoric being spewed at the time by then-President Donald Trump. For instance, in 2019, during a campaign rally in Panama City, Florida, Trump referred to a caravan of asylum seekers making its way to the United States as an invasion, then going on to fearmonger against the caravan by suggesting that it was an invasion of drugs coming from Mexico and that it was an assault on our country. In fact, Trump ran ads on Facebook where his campaign drummed up the invasion rhetoric with statements such as, "We have an invasion. We are building the wall to stop it. And we want a safe country. It's critical that we stop the invasion." Despite this, the El Paso shooter claimed that his beliefs predated President Trump. However, one would be a fool to deny that such fear-mongering nationalist rhetoric does not have a tangible effect in the form of an increased anti-immigrant sentiment. This sentiment then leads to attacks like what we saw in El Paso, where a motivated white nationalist undertook a racist terrorist attack. My point here is that we cannot deny that this anti-immigrant rhetoric doesn't lead to an irrational hate, which could further lead to violent action against immigrant or minority communities. And this brings us to the modern day, September 2021. Thousands of Haitian immigrants have camped out at Del Rio, Texas, after entering the United States through the Rio Grande. Many of those at the border are seeking asylum within the United States. I want you to understand that in order to obtain asylum, immigrants must be physically present in the United States. Per the USCIS website, one may seek asylum regardless of how they arrived in the United States or their current immigration status, meaning that even undocumented individuals may apply for asylum. Some, however, claim that these migrants don't have a rightful claim to asylum because there is no persecution by their government against them. Haitians, however, point to the instability brought on by the assassination of Haiti's president, as well as the destructive earthquake on September 19th, as to reasons which they are fearful to returning to their country, which now seems more unstable than when they left. And as these immigrants amass the U.S. border in hopes of attaining asylum, one only needs to look over at the right-wing media to again hear calls of an invasion being echoed almost as if though they forgot that this rhetoric has led to violence in the past. One individual who's repeatedly referred to these people as invaders is Tommy Lauren, pushing a Great Replacement talking point that asylum seekers and undocumented immigrants are invading this country. Furthermore, she's even stated that Democrats are allowing it to happen so as to bolster their voter base. She seemingly forgets that undocumented people are incapable of voting in American elections. We're not idiots, though. We know that her goal is fear-mongering. Fear-mongering for the purpose of fostering fear against people in search of a better life because their circumstances have led them down a path outside of the legally prescribed method for immigration into the United States. This fear-mongering is achieved through the rhetoric of the immigrant invasion, which is a rhetoric that has been used since back when the first Chinese immigrants first began arriving in the United States. This fear-mongering is often followed by dehumanizing language, such as the deliberate use of the term illegal rather than undocumented immigrants. This calls forth a sense of criminality, leading to a lesser sense of empathy for people in search of a better life. They hope to move their base towards a lack of empathy by creating the idea that these people are not people in search of a better life for their families, escaping subpar living conditions in their poor nations ravaged by corruption, political turmoil, and natural disaster, but rather that these people are criminals, illegals, undeserving of your empathy or consideration. But the truth is that the people amassing at the border are just that. They're people. Many of them are mothers, fathers. Within this mass, there's families, there's children. These are people in search of a better life than their home nations could offer them. These people are escaping conditions many of us living in the luxury of this empire couldn't even fathom. They're not invaders, and pushing that narrative leads us down a dangerous road. That narrative, it leads us down a road of nationalist radicalization, xenophobia, a fear of the outsider due to the message that these people are coming here to replace us, a fear that can and has led to violent action. And we cannot allow these people like Tommy Lauren to continue pushing this divisive, hateful, xenophobic rhetoric. We cannot afford further radicalization and risk further violent action against immigrant and minority communities. The moment you see anybody spouting off of this hateful, anti-immigrant propaganda, it is important that you call it out. If you have the means to call it out, you have the responsibility. Ridicule them, point out the flaws in their rhetoric, point out the hate, and don't let this hatred continue to spread. And for those of you on the right who are pushing this invasion narrative, who fancy yourselves Christians, maybe you should crack open that Bible that you claim to live your life by, and see that it says, "The alien who resides with you shall be to you as a citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt." Or see where it says, "Cursed is anyone who withholds justice from the foreigner, the fatherless, or the widow." And that being said, this is Internet Mexican. In the description down below, you will see a link tree. This link tree is for an organization known as Houston Haitians United, which is currently looking for volunteers and looking for donations to help Haitian migrants currently in Houston. Please consider checking out the link tree, going out. If you're in the area, maybe you can volunteer, sign up to volunteer. Those of you who are not in the area, perhaps you can donate to help some of these migrants get supplies that they need. And if you can't donate, I understand we're all going through a difficult financial situation due to the pandemic. If you aren't able to donate, at least help spread the message around. Again, thank you very much. This has been Internet Mexican. Have a good night.